Hi everybody, welcome to this lovely first reboot impromptu episode of First Tunes Videocast Podcast. I don't really know what cast. My name is David Givens. I am an alumni of First Team Max 1071. I was on the team from 2009 to 2013, and now I mentor and I do lots of volunteering. With me are my two kind of compadres in this show. I have Kyle Torok, who is also an alumni of 1071 from 2009 to 2012. He does a lot of volunteering stuff. You can see him tech side with the field. And I've got Tom Lorenko, who is also an alumni of 1071 from 2009 to 2013. And you can catch him game announcing. And all three of us obviously kind of volunteer our time in the New England region. And go any first. So, we are here to discuss the upcoming game hint, or the game hint that was just released. And like I said, we're kind of doing this very kind of chillax. We're just throwing our ideas out there. But we're going to just kind of discuss our theories, and hopefully some people might drop by and get their ideas, and so we'll see what happens.
Rough.
So
I'd say to start this off, it would be a good idea to possibly play the video.
Yep.
That way we could make sure everyone who's potentially watching has seen what's going on and what the plans were. So I'll throw that up on the screen now.
Okay.
And just wait a minute, boys.
Change is coming.
So that was the hint.
You go first, Dave.
Oh, okay. Of course I have to. All right. So, where do I begin? I mean, I think kind of the first thing to note is, and I'm going to be kind of a little critical of the game hint here. I think it's kind of a continuation of the vibes we've been getting, and if you kind of have been reading Frank's stuff and what he's been posting, it kind of mimics. He's kind of been hinting at basically what the game hint has straight out said. The biggest thing is, I think, is a change is coming. Now, what that change could be, who knows? But I tweeted this on my Twitter account earlier. But I think it's not so much that we have a hint, but we have a warning. And it's. I don't know what it could be. I know first, and I know it could be anything. But I think, the key is going to be is something that we consider a staple of an FRC game. Something that I think those of us, especially who volunteer and who are very much used to things being so static and being a certain way, that we think they wouldn't change, they're going to change. How major of an upset it's going to be, I don't know. Fair warning to those in the audience, one of the things I do is I co-chair a district event, so I'm hoping it's not anything completely
crazy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that that's looking to be the point of the video, especially because of the fact that they listed major changes throughout the entire time that FIRST has ever existed. Ever. Also, we lost Dave for a short period of time. He'll be coming back, I'm sure. Yeah, he's back in it already.
Hi. Where'd you guys lose me at?
Just right where you were going to say crazy. You hope they don't do anything too crazy.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think they'll...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
No, just basically, I don't think they're going to do anything too crazy, but we don't know. It really could be anything.
I agree.
So as I was gonna say then, the thing is that's very much in line of them doing something crazy, is very much in line with what the video is pointing to and alluding to, with all the years being listed, but more importantly, all the major changes that ever occurred in first competition. For example, I recorded them all in Notepad. In 1993, they increased the size. That was for the second competition. In 1999, they started robot alliances. 2005, it became a 3v3 situation. But then they also listed some other things that didn't seem as important, like 1996 weight increase, 2013's frame perimeter changes, and 2009, which was the year of lunacy, the surface of the field being regolith instead of carpet. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, all those changes, number one, they don't seem to have a pattern when you look at them straight up, because like you said, there's, certain smaller patterns, like field size changes and things like that, but they all point to first expanding. The reason for the 3-on-3 alliances, for instance, was because you just had too many teams for a 2-on-2. Same thing with the weight increase. You had a almost Beck-sized robot at the time, and then you had a much bigger robot as the programming increased and teams began to have a little bit more money. So I wonder if it's going to have something to do with that. Even Lunacy, they were trying to, at the time, bring in a little bit more of a pop culture, current event kind of vibe into an already growing scene. It, in my opinion, didn't work very well, but it was a really cool idea. So I have to wonder if it's not going to be something, again, with first expanding.
Yeah, I can...
No, Kyle, I do like that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Tom.
The lag in Skype results in us just telling each other to continue. So I'll just say then that I agree that it's just periods of time where first kind of just grew, which raises the question, with a lot of areas switching to a district system and the competitions actually being a lot smaller, do you guys ever think they'll change something, for example, like alliances, to a smaller size? Like, you think that's a possibility?
It could be.
It could. I don't think they'll go smaller. The reason I think that is because I think what people tend to forget about these games is that, while there are things we can change, some major changes make a huge impact beyond what happens on the field. And if you were to downsize the alliance, you would base the amount of teams per game or the sizes of the alliance. You would definitely basically decrease the capacity of events. So, the idea of basically going from 3-on-3 to 2-on-2, it probably won't happen, and one of the things, especially with kind of the worry as it is about capacity, seeing things change to go from, for example, maybe 3-on-3 to like 2-on-2-on-2, that's very up in the air. That's very possible because it still keeps your capacity open. The events still kind of operate as is, but it's a totally different dynamic. And, but still kind of keeping the basic shape of the events the same. So, I mean, that's definitely something we could see.
No, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
I think the change you're proposing even would be really interesting in some sense. I mean, that would definitely emphasize the possibilities of change and everything, and it goes along with some of the changes they listed. Like a 2-on-2-on-2 match would be just like, it would go along the lines, I think, of possibly changing the scoring system, which isn't something they've shied away from before, or changing like what robots should be able to do on the field. It would definitely, like, in the end of the video, he literally throws the rules in a recycling bin. Like, that would definitely just completely trash so many existing rules, like the blockade rule and other examples. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Absolutely, and the other thing to keep in mind is that every example, as Dave pointed out, when you change something major within the game structure, it has a significant impact not only on how that game is played, but also on the entire dynamics of the competition as a whole. And every single one of those changes did that. The alliance changes, the robot sizes, all of those did the same thing in that regard. And I mean, there are other massive changes that they left out. The one that comes to mind, for instance, is the switch from the old radio system to the new wireless system. That is a massive change. That was literally a game changer. Because, just what you're able to do with, more bandwidth and communication just expanded so many new opportunities. But that was left out. So I have to wonder if it's not going to be something that fundamentally changes the way the game is played as an entire whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dave, that watcher in Twitch also brought up that the field is already set, apparently.
Right.
And
right.
so, with 3 alliances on each side. So as much as I love that idea of 2-2-2, which I think you were just using as an example, it's not happening this season, which is upsetting.
Yeah, it's unless they did it where they were gonna use the existing field with maybe like 2 alliances will be on opposite sides and 1 alliance will get split. Which, like I said, I don't think they'll do that. The fields are pretty much set. I know for a fact that the new New England Andy Mark fields are, already set up and getting prepped to get sent out. So obviously that it won't be quite a change like that, but
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be something that radical. Even
Right.
other changes can fundamentally change the way the competition is executed.
Yeah, going along with that idea of other fundamental changes, like what else do you guys think is possible? Like I was contemplating, while looking over the changes they listed otherwise, like the possibilities to change the surface of the carpet is just really basic, or the requirements for the robot, like not necessarily what the robot's made out of, but just the size and frame perimeter would be very easy to adjust.
Or even if it's not the size and frame perimeter, even an increase in weight. I mean, you and I both know very well, Tom, how hard it is to keep an intricate design in weight. And if we were to be given, what would you do with an extra 20 pounds?
Strap a brass bar to the front of the robot. Isn't that question obvious?
Well, that's a good point. Thank you, I believe 2006. But, but I mean, the point stands, just even something relatively minor like that, all of a sudden a lot more, opportunities for more intricate and more robust mechanisms opens up, which can really change a few things.
And I think like a change like that would not just be great for teams that are experienced and know how to use the weight appropriately. Sometimes the weight limit for new teams is just this barrier that is almost impossible to surpass from what I've seen.
It's a killer. It's an absolute killer.
Yeah, it completely wrecks robot design sometimes. So by giving that like weight increase, you give teams with some sort of experience a chance to even expand their ideas further, and new teams you give them a bit of leeway. Like nobody goes into the build process with the frame parameters in mind saying I'm going to go over 120 pounds or whatever weight is provided. I think a lot of people, just end up at the end of the day being a bit over that. And if you raise the weight limit, the same thing might occur, but I think it's just like adds so much more room for great ideas. Like for example, in our year of Breakaway, I know for a fact if we had a couple more pounds, there was the possibility of incorporating that lift mechanism or something like that. Like just the opportunities start to unfold.
Absolutely. What do you think, Dave?
No, I mean, I totally agree. I think, kind of going, one of the train of thoughts is, seeing the different alterations in kind of the more technical rules and adding more weight would be a very major thing, and definitely really awesome.
I mean, the other thing, it's fairly obvious, this is one of the first ones I thought of was, they can't be referencing or I really hope they're not referencing, the new control system for 2015. But like I said earlier, the prior control system change was not, added in their list of major changes. Even though it was a significant moment, it was never added. So I have to wonder if we're even not going down the right path with this, and it's not even going to be anything to do with the robot itself. It's going to be...
I thought it was also interesting, because you're just noting, and sorry to just jump in so rapidly, that the control system changed and it wasn't listed as a significant change. There were a few other things that I thought were kind of important. The big one being logo motion. They just showed that, and they did not mention mini-bots at all. Like, that was a year for the first time teams had the potential of building 2 robots and trying to incorporate more like FTC, FRC interaction, and they just completely ignored that at that point.
Yeah, they did. So, I mean, I have to wonder if it's not going to be more with scoring, because there was quite a bit in, the changes list, from the introduction of autonomous to, racing against the clock and time matches and things like that, that all have to do with match schedules, the concept of a cycle or something similar, and how a match is actually scored. I mean, I'm a scorekeeper at most events. That's what I do. And most of the changes they've listed, when it, other than that weren't, like increase in size or something like that, they basically made my job.
What do you think, Dave?
No, I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. My kind of thoughts, one thing I've been doing a little reading up on Delphi, that was kind of some of the other theories, and one of the popular ones, is the people in the chat have mentioned it, is kind of the autonomous endgame, and I just kind of want to see what you guys thought about that.
I think that's possible. I know that's been a rumor for a few years now, that they've been going to do that. I remember reading some post about that back during Breakaway. I don't remember when or who did it, but I do remember hearing a rumor back then. And I mean, the point is that I think it would be actually a really valuable thing if they were to do it and do it right. I think most teams, both beginners and experienced teams, could have some fun with it and use it as a very effective tool, especially since, as we've discussed at length, the three of us, the end games sometimes aren't always to the benefit of the teams or the game itself.
Yeah, we've brought up that topic before between ourselves, obviously not on the show just yet. We talked about it recently, saying that end games have often tricked teams into the wrong strategy, or end games have been way too important. An autonomous end game, I think, would be very interesting, because autonomous, in my opinion, has never put a team at a full disadvantage. Like,
no, it hasn't.
Not having autonomous has not wrecked teams. Having an autonomous has obviously helped teams a lot. And then, just depending on what your autonomous does, there's a lot of options almost every single game on what strategies you can use during it.
But I mean, like you said, it doesn't necessarily hurt a team. It's not going to be a case of, well, if I did this, I could have scored more points. I could have on another cycle in or something like that. So you end up in the negative. It's just a case of, I don't have one. I'm not scoring any points during this round.
Yeah. It's either, it's always you could benefit probably from an autonomous, but unlike other end games where it's been like Minibot completely swinging matches, because at the end of the game, in that end game specifically, there's no benefit to not having that end game. The amount of points you'd score when that Minibot could be going up, is pathetic by comparison. Or the end game was, in my opinion, the most recent terrible end game, that being the tower in Ultimate Ascent. It just tricked teams into thinking that that amount of points would be super, super valuable, and it wasn't. So an autonomous endgame would just be a period of time where people have to take advantage of it, but at the same time, if it can't trick you, the period is set, it's going to happen, there's nothing else you can be doing other than being autonomous. So it's a good idea.
I agree. The other thing it does is it really, in my opinion, would enhance the technical challenge of the entire competition, since really the autonomous period, in my mind, is one of the hardest things to do and do well. And it's something that can set you apart. Even if, on-field strategy, on-field plays, driver skill, whatever, put all that to the side. On a technical level, developing your skills and everything else, it's really something that can just make you stand out from a crowd. So I really almost hope that they change that.
Dave, have you seen any other popular theories?
Not so much popular theories. I've just seen a lot of discussion on kind of, endgame in general, which is kind of what we've been talking on. It's not even so much people debating it, but just people discussing whether they'd want to see it back or not. Obviously last year, kind of not having the end game really changed things up and really set a different dynamic for the game. So it's just more kind of that discussion. I don't know how you guys particularly feel about it. I know you kind of touched on it in discussing the autonomous end game, but maybe if you guys want to develop your theories on that a little more.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sure. Well, I mean, in my opinion, as I said previously, I think the end game has been a culprit in tricking innocent teams, or a culprit in completely switching, which side of a match can, which way a match will go. Now, like, looking at it from, I mean, that's just hindsight. I think just bringing the end game out of the mix, like they did in Aerial Assist, was pretty interesting. I mean, how would I put it? They definitely took an opportunity to make the game more specific, which helped experienced teams get better at the game and unexperienced teams, focus on one thing, which was interesting to see. There was no point in a game where you weren't doing this one thing, so you were generally focused on that one thing.
I agree. I mean, teams that do those things well, and sometimes will come out ahead. Teams that don't, sometimes they'll come out behind. It's kind of game specific, but like you said, it just kind of adds more elements where it can kind of trick people. Like I said, I almost hope that they add autonomous spirit at the end. I think that would go well. Both looking at it from a scoring period, kind of perspective, because that's a common problem with, teams trying to do whatever the end game is. They'll get wrapped up in doing cycles or something like that, lose track of time, and now they can't showcase their technical skills because they're just out of field position, which is still a mistake, but, that's one where, in my opinion, technical skill should kind of trump. Whereas if you're in autonomous, it's just you park it where it's supposed to be, you hit the button, or I should say, the server hits it for you, and then if your robot is good enough, then it does what it's supposed to. If it's not, then it doesn't.
And then one of the other things I saw on Delphi, I figure, kind of a discussion point that I happen to agree with is that, the end game, it is definitely important, I think at the lower levels of competition, at the districts and the regionals, and to an extent the district championships, and in kind of those scenarios like you two are discussed. But one of the things we see is we get into higher level of plays and we start, getting into divisional elimination rounds at championship, and then of course we get into Einstein. It's a factor, it's points, but at that point, because basically everyone does the end game, it ends up becoming kind of a mute point, you know what I mean? So whereas at the lower levels of plays, the end game from a spectator perspective and kind of a show perspective, it really adds that wowness factor. I kind of, by the time the end game rolls around in those higher levels, you pretty much knows who's going to win. It's not, maybe sometimes if it's a very close match, there's a determining factor, but it's not the same as it is at the lower levels. And, so the people who kind of were pushing this theory in Delphi basically said, well, with the 2014 game, it really kind of caused tense moments right up until the end at the higher levels of play, and getting in that last three assist shot was just as exciting as seeing an end game. So in that regard, that's kind of some of the arguments about, not having an end game. I'm personally kind of more leaning towards not having one, but I'm fine with it either way. I just think I like how aerial assist kind of rolled out more like a real sport, and it was kind of, just focusing on the same thing. And, for those in the audience who don't know, I in my kind of boredom in the fall, I do watch a little football, and one of the things I love about football is always that tense situation at the end. Are they going to score that last touchdown? Because while there's athleticism in it, it's a chess match of strategy, and I feel like that's what I loved about aerial assist, was that it was it was based on that that last goal, but it wasn't the entirety of a match. It would always fall on that last component, whereas in an end game you kind of get it, where the end game tends to throw the match a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before. Actually, we've experienced before. Kyle Torog and myself being on the drive team for Max. In the finals for CTR, we had both of our alliance partner shooters break down, and we were unable to cross the barrier. This being in Rebound Rumble, of course, where the end game was balancing on the colored bridges to score as many points as possible. And in those last moments, we got a high-pressure moment because of the end game, being that we tried doing a triple balance and unfortunately failed doing a triple balance with our robot crashing to the ground. But, that excitement was there, and then you look back on it and you realize if we had gotten 40 points, we would have lost by 2 anyways. Would the game have been better if that barrier was not there and instead the teams were trying to score the whole time? If we had been, instead of focusing on the triple balance, as soon as getting the bridge down, being let over by our partners and scoring as much as we can, would it have been a closer match? Would it have been more exciting? And some parties are inclined to think yes, it would have been. Our teammates would have been able to go over and play defense, and I think I can agree with that fact. I mean, my favorite match of all of last year was the final match in Where's Wolkit, where I got to game announce, where no cycles were ever completed, but not because the teams were terrible, but because the teams played such strong defense. The alliance that ended up winning realized we have more points from our autonomous if we just shut down the other team, if we just fight it out and keep them from scoring their autonomous balls, we'll just win. It was all it took, and it created a high-pressure game even though it was low scoring, in an environment where high-scoring games are often considered the most exciting.
I agree. I really do. I mean, either way, I think it's going to be hard to tell what they have planned, simply because there's so much that they can pull from. I mean, it can even be something as simple as, okay, we're going to completely change the way we're going to use game pieces this year, or better yet, spoiler alert, there is no game piece this year. We're going to do stack attack with each other's robots or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can pull from.
I know we wanted to keep these shows, at least in the early season, strict kind of to 30 minutes, just to not bore people, but there's so much discussion. Do you guys want to keep going for a bit, or do you guys want to try to cut it now?
I think we should just wrap it up, because we're not going to have too much more of a serious discussion until we can see, basically what the manual is going to look like. But I think it's time for some more of the fun conspiracy theories that I know all 3 of us have. Well, why don't you go first, Dave?
I'm just going to get it out of the way before we talk about the other conspiracy theories. It's Water Game, just saying. I'm still hoping for it.
Oh, you mean Lava Game, not Water Game. No.
Lava Game, Water Game. Oh yeah. No. It's gonna happen. I mean, they already told us there's water coming, so it's no. But I don't think it'll happen. But I would just love. I've heard it talked about before, and I would seriously love to see like aerially suspended robots.
That'd be
You
pretty
know,
awesome.
it's been discussed. I don't think it'll happen, but man, it would be cool if we got there one day.
So that'd be pretty awesome. How about you, Tom?
Okay. So what I was thinking was going along with that 2-on-2-on-2 idea. You play as the Red Alliance versus the Blue Alliance, and you have a White Alliance, which is the game piece. Both of those robots act as game pieces throughout the match, and you have to move them and adjust them appropriately by communicating to the one game piece on your side of the field, as well as trying to force the enemy's game piece out of position. So in that sense, you have to build not only to be on either of the colored alliances that can win, but also that we can you can play to be that game piece and act appropriately to help either alliance.
I think that would be pretty awesome. Whether or not that's going to be the 2015 game, I think I would still pay money to see that. That'd be pretty awesome. Personally, my harebrained conspiracy theory is, I mean, at the end of the hint video, you see him throwing the 2014 manual into a recycling bin. That can be seen as, okay, we're going green. Maybe it'd be something as simple in that regards as, there's going to be less paper in it or something, during competitions or something like that. My take on that is there's just going to be no manual. You're not going to know what the game is, not going to know what the rule is until you build a robot. You still have 6 weeks, maybe, unless that's no longer a rule, which you don't know. But at some point, you're going to be told to stop working on a robot. Don't know what it's for. You're going to ship it to some place you don't know where it is. Finally be told where it is, and then you're going to play a game you haven't seen until that day. That's just my harebrained theme.
I like that a lot. I think, the concept, just in general, of you don't even know what you're going to be, capable of doing. You just have to build such a versatile robot. I mean, it would be amazing.
One of the I don't necessarily think it's a crazy strategy, but just kind of monitoring the chat, one of the things that was brought up was XN Checkmate had pointed out how they love games with interaction between opposing alliances, and saying, hey, maybe trailers coming back is a possibility, or something like Capture the Flag again.
That could work. I could see them doing that. I could definitely see them doing that. I mean, it worked really well in the past. It gives a little bit more kind of feel, almost like crowding. You really have to be more careful when you're driving whenever you have trailers or any other movable game pieces of significant mass involved. So, I mean, I think it could definitely work pretty well.
Okay, with that, Dave, would you like to throw out our promotions and wrap us up?
Yeah. So, thank you guys for listening to this kind of reboot. For those of you watching, First Tunes is kind of a project we tried in our high school days and didn't quite come together as we wanted, but we thought we'd give it another try. And so with that being said, we would love to kind of have your feedback on what you like and what you don't like. We're at this point, we're kind of feeling things out. But if you have some feedback, good, bad, what we did wrong, what we could do better, things you'd like to see, things you'd like to talk to us, you can give us an email at firsttunes@gmail.com. That's firsttunes@gmail.com. I surprisingly still have a Twitter account from when we had tried this earlier, so that's at First Tunes, but I'm telling everyone right now we haven't really updated it yet, but you can follow us there. We'll probably start doing Twitter content. In the real world, I work with social media for my job, so we'll definitely get that together. And for personal shameless plugs, if you're not doing anything week 5, come to the Hartford District event. I will love you forever. My volunteer coordinator will love you forever if you volunteer, so do that. And that's really it about for me with shameless plugs. Anything from you guys?
I'm good.
I just say that information will be surely in the description, and we'll be sure to hit you up with more First Tunes action as the season continues, most likely the next episode being related to the game release. We'll probably announce that via Twitter, so follow us if you want to hear more of this content, and we'll try to reach you in any other way possible. For now, I guess that's us signing off.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.